Hi guys! Well, in this video I'm going to build this home office organizational system. So here is a look at what this space looked like beforehand. Always messy and things thrown on top of each other. Now the wall behind was empty, so I thought why not utilize that and build upwards. Alongside with a hutch for the desk, a cubby unit and shelving, I should be able to store things much better, because there's nothing worse than clutter. The first thing I started with was the plywood wall. I chose a light grey color, and here I'm making it a touch darker. I used 3/4 inch or 19mm pure bond plywood and made it so it was the same width as the desk. So I found the studs on the wall and the rafters in the ceiling and attached it. I am also running wire behind, so it's all ready for lighting later on. First off, the hutch unit. My desk is white, so I decided to continue that theme and go with white storage units and contrast that with some cherry for warmth. Here I'm gluing up a couple of pieces for the shelf across. Next I moved on towards the pieces underneath the wood. I figured 2 units, one on each side. I've got some 1/2 inch or 12mm plywood cut up, and I'm screwing the pieces together. Within these cubbies I want to store my typewriter, paper, as well as electronics and other things like that. With the cherry all glued up, I went to work on sanding it smooth. Now to run the edges of the board, I'm using my block plane, and I just wanted a simple, smooth edge. Then I sealed the wood on all sides with shellac, and later I finished it a couple of times with some water-based poly. The next unit I want to build is a smaller cubby shelf in the same theme, with white plywood with a cherry piece on top. This I figured could hold some office supplies and various things like that, so I'm seeing where do I want the separations. And this is why I think it's so cool to do this yourself, because that way you can create the perfect custom-sized sections for your things. And to connect this, I'm using this pin nailer, which I really like because it barely leaves any marks, so it's great for assembly. And measuring out some cherry again to fit nicely on top. Another thing I really want on this wall is some substantial shelves. So I've got some plywood cut up and painted, and some heavy-duty brackets in white. The next unit I'm working on is this dowel board. So this oversized pegboard will feature a couple of shelves and hangers, and I decided to use some beautiful mahogany plywood that I have left over from the makerspace. Now to create this board, I'm using 1-inch dowels. These are cherry, so I'm marking out a grid 4 inches apart, and then drilling all the holes. By wiggling the drill around a little bit, I was able to enlarge the hole slightly to make the dowels easier to rearrange on the board. To attach this to the wall, I've got some scrap pieces on the back side, and this will create some separation between the board and the wall to create a shadow line and a look of depth. I also made 2 small shelves using the same plywood to rest on the dowels. And to make it a little easier to put in the dowels, I'm sanding the holes with some wax polish. Another thing I wanted on this wall is a corkboard to put up notes or pictures. So I cut a piece of scrap plywood, which I glued to the corkboard. Now the assemble is coming together. I'm gluing the cherry to the cubbies to create the hutch and just clamping to secure properly. Then I secured the corkboard to the wall as well as the floating cubby unit. To cap the plywood edge, I cut up some thin pieces of cherry that I'm nailing in all around. And I used the same technique to cap the dowel board and the corkboard around too. And I think this finished it off really well. A few final touches left here, putting up a hook for a ruler. And I also decided to wax the shelves for the dowel board as well as the dowels for a darker look. And to keep the shelves in place, I put a dab of hot glue down, and this seems to work well. Now I drilled a hole in the table so the wires to the external hard drives had somewhere to go, and it was really one of my goals here to minimize as many visible wires as possible. I also have speakers up and a laptop charger coming up from the back. Then putting everything in place, especially the typewriter. I also had a little extra space to the right on the wall, so I decided to use a piece of leather and secure it to the board with some upholstery nails. And now I had a designated area to store envelopes. I guess when I started this project, my goal was really to fit as many different things on this wall as possible, and that all started with using the plywood on the back. And the reason for the plywood was partly because I wanted to be able to put things wherever, without having to worry if there was a stud there or anything like that. And I think this is really one of my favorite parts about this, system now, because since I painted it in a different color and I put it towards the ceiling, it makes it feel kind of more sectioned off. Like cozier, like its own little area. And I think that's a really great idea for any space in your home when you want to create a feeling of more privacy. And then of course, because I have the wires already behind, it's going to be really easy to put lights up, which is going to be another project. Now I do editing and writing and planning on this desk, and I really wanted like a home for different things. So like a spot for the laptop where I can kind of push it in, gain more desk space. I wanted an area for the typewriter where I could kind of push it in and have it protected yet still accessible. I also wanted a space for the electronics, so like the power bank, the external hard drives, mouse, microphone, all of that in one spot. Now when I think about this whole unit, there are many parts that I like, but I think my favorite may be the dowel board. And of course that's a different take on the pegboard, but instead of the small holes you have the larger holes for the dowels. And I just think it's kind of cool how you can move those around wherever you need them and get hangers, plus it just kind of looks interesting. But let me know which is your favorite part of this whole project, and could you use something like this in your home? I know I could use this kind of system in a lot of different areas, because you can never have too much like organization and like having a home for each different thing. Let me know what you guys think about this project. I'll put links in the description to the products that I've used and that kind of thing. And otherwise, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye!